On this week's episode, can The Rock scale the skyscraper and beat Transylvania? What was the best pickup in NBA free agency? And will Build-A-Bear ever be the same after Pay Your Own Age Day? After Pay Your Age Day. All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you listening to all of our shows, but it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. He is the man behind Humanica Media. You gotta check out all the great things that they've got going on at humanicamedia.com, Humanica Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. It's my good friend. It's a very sleepy Josh Peterson. What's up, man? Because in a few minutes, it probably won't be you.
What up, what up, what up? Yeah, a little late tonight. Good, man. Just hanging out here, ready to do some podcasting. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Just back at it. Our schedules couldn't align the way we like to today, but still we're here to make sure that we still have a great episode for you today. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. First off, I want to go ahead and give a special shout out to two of our brand new stations, which will be covering our shows and which will be airing our shows. And that's Mile High Radio and WZQR. Want to say a friendly Pop Culture Cosmos hello to you. Thank you so much for carrying our shows. We truly appreciate it and hope your listeners out there like our shows as well. Hey, it's going to be a great episode. Like I said, we've got Anthony Barbant coming up later in the episode to talk to me about some of the great things going on in NBA free agency from a standpoint of the Lakers, the Houston Rockets, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Those teams made some big moves in the offseason. What were his thoughts on it? He's going to let you know later on in the program. Plus, we've got Rob McCallum in the middle of the Cosmic Crossfire. Where did I put it? Okay. We're going to spar over, well, I guess, you know what? We had a little bit of a discussion, per se, on Sony and whether or not Sony should focus more on entertainment and less on electronics, and also the importance of crossplay and Fortnite on Switch. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to be talking about that and going at each other mano a mano on that program, on that part of the program. Plus, Josh and I are going to be talking a little bit about the delay in Indiana Jones 5, a new RoboCop movie coming out. Are both necessary, and is it really important for Disney as far as the Indiana Jones series is concerned? And also, to cap things off, we're going to talk about the disaster known as Pay Your Age Day at Build-A-Bear, and if this is going to hurt the company long-term with consumers. But first, it's going to be a great weekend at the box office. You still have, for a second weekend strong, you've got Ant-Man and the Wasp still storming theaters. It looks like that's going to end up domestically here around 30 to 40 million. It's still going to do that much and more because it's still opening up in markets overseas across the world. So definitely still a great sign for Marvel that I think it's going to do very well all across the board. Will it be number one in the US? I don't think so, because there's two movies coming out that'll provide a decent challenge for it. We've got the latest movie from The Rock, Skyscraper, which I know a lot of people are throwing those comparisons as a Die Hard clone, and I think that's very understandable given the context of the trailers and what's been previewed and some of the early word on the movie. Plus, also as well, a return to the animated screen for Adam Sandler as Dracula in Hotel Transylvania 3. This may be the third time around. Is it too much as far as Hotel Transylvania? Is there still an audience for it? Are kids and parents still going to be flocking to that film? now that it's been a few weeks away from The Incredibles 2, which is still doing gangbusters all over the place. Josh, I want to hear your thoughts first on Hotel Transylvania 3 from Sony. Is this a movie that you still think can resonate with young audiences before they head back to school in August and, well, in some cases, even early September?
Well, I think it's Sony, right? I think Sony's hoping so because 3 is kind of the last number before a film franchise becomes redundant, especially an animated film franchise. So I think they're banking hard on that, doing well with people. I saw the trailers. I liked the first one a lot. Never saw the second one, but just from seeing the trailer when I went to go see Ant-Man and Wasp, it doesn't look that great. It has the whole element of the monsters and all that stuff. But what made the first one great to me was you're kind of introducing these animated versions of these monsters that you kind of grew up with. But in the third one, it seems to have kind of lost its flair. They're going on a cruise ship and you have Van Helsing's daughter or granddaughter or whatever, and to me it just doesn't. I'll watch it still, but it just doesn't look like something that I want to rush out to the theaters to see, even if I had kids that I wanted to take. But I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Well, it looks like it's the old adage where, okay, if you've been stuck in one place too long, you try to go ahead and move the element, even though you may not have a story to support it. It looks like that's the case with Hotel Transylvania 3, where you've been in that castle, aka hotel, for 2 movies now. You got to go ahead and change locales, make it something different, something to try to, in quote unquote, spice things up. At this point in time, I believe you are correct. Maybe there's not enough magic left. Maybe there's not enough magic left in Hotel Transylvania to get a more than a 1 week really big outing. I still think it's going to do enough because there is only The Incredibles 2 out as competition for the kids fair right now. And Incredibles 2 has done so well domestically here in the US. It's starting to really branch out overseas, but it's done so well here in the US. It may be time finally for something to supplant it as a #1 kids movie. This could do it and take over #1 at the box office. But you're right. At some point in time, it gets played out. This is the #3, like you said before, becomes derivative. It could become derivative already. But with Sony, they don't have that many animated properties that they can lean on, unlike other entities out there like a DreamWorks with the Kung Fu Panda series, and also, of course, all the stuff from Disney and Pixar.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Plus, How to Train. There's hype coming out now with How to Train Your Dragon. Whatever the third one is coming out, and like,
And that's another one from the DreamWorks, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
Universal and DreamWorks, I think.
that franchise has always been more interesting to me. Like Hotel Transylvania is one of those movies that I didn't watch until it came out on Blu-ray, and only then like it was an on demand, and that's what made me want to watch it. It's just not appealing enough to me. Maybe it is to mass audiences, and I've heard stories of people liking that franchise, but it's not. I don't know. It doesn't have the mass appeal that like Minions or Despicable 3 does, or Despicable Me 3, or like a Toy Story or something. It's just kind of a alternative to some of the more adult movies that are out. But like I even have run into situations where I remember parents talking about how they took their kids to see that movie and they weren't like, they kind of took them out of it just because of the thematic elements were too scary for them.
I agree with you on that. Even though they try to make it as silly as possible, there are some possible scary elements every now and then to it, especially for the real young ones out there. But still, I think it's going to get played out this time. I know the budget's right at around 70 to 80 million. And for an animated feature, it's somewhat cost effective, I guess you should say. I guess I can say. So that means worldwide, in $200 million, then they can still consider it a profit. but I don't think they should come back with a Hotel Transylvania 4, at least on the big screen, maybe VOD, things like that. So that would be probably more beneficial to the Sony on that. Or maybe even make it a series for Crackle or whatever entity, or for whatever streaming entity they like to go ahead and put it out on. Skyscraper, my friend, before we get into Ant-Man and the Wasp, because I know you got to check it out just after we finished our last taping. Skyscraper, my friend, it has been called ad nauseum a derivative of the classic film Die Hard with Bruce Willis. This is another opportunity for The Rock to prove that he is, to a lot of people and a lot of pundits out there, the #1 box office entity out there. The last movie he was in, Rampage, did just under $100 million domestically, but garnered worldwide over $400 million total. It fell just short of becoming the #1 movie worldwide when it comes to video game adaptations. So it didn't quite break the video game movie curse. So I ask you, my friend, does The Rock still have that type of, I guess, box office power to get people in, to not only have a good showing, but take a movie which may not exactly be on the surface the most intriguing or enticing to watch, and turn it into something that is going to generate a lot of money at the box office worldwide? Because we didn't think Jumanji was going to actually be the hit that it was. I certainly didn't think so, and I don't think I remember you telling me that either. But we went to see it, and it was just like, okay, that's what it's all about. Could this be something similar to that, or might it be this year's Baywatch for him?
I don't know. It's hard to say. A lot of people like cheesy action movies. Like I was reading the review for it on IGN, and they agreed that it was a terrible movie, but it was entertaining. So if you're in that crowd that likes to watch like B-grade Netflix movies, it might be right up your alley, kind of like 2021, or what was the other one that what's the one that The Rock was in, when Earthquake or San
Yeah,
Andreas?
San Andreas.
Yeah, kind of like that. I think that people, you know, a movie like that with The Rock, people aren't expecting much. Like it was already being made fun of by people the moment that they put the trailer out. Yet there are people who are going to go see this movie just because it's The Rock, you know, it's an action movie and it's something to watch. Because if you look at between now and, you know, sometime in late August, there's not really a lot of movies coming out, so people are just going to go to the movies to see something. So it's a great time for a B grade movie to be put out into theaters, because there's literally nothing out there for people to watch besides Ant-Man and the Wasp, that or Jurassic Park, that's really going to have any traction until late August or early September.
Mission Impossible Fallout, and that's pretty much it. Christopher Robin, maybe for the kids, but yeah, you're right. There's not a whole lot out there. And this is something that you and I have seen as a trend over the past couple of years, that mid to late July, we start seeing a trickle of movies coming out that are of any quality or any AAA box office status. Then after that, in August, I mean, last year you were hoping upon all hope that Dark Tower could be that movie that would just skyrocket in August, the way I believe the original Guardians of the Galaxy did so many years back. But unfortunately, that didn't seem to be the case. And there's not really much on the horizon when it comes to August that a lot of people are pointing towards. Maybe that will change, but I think outside of Mission Impossible Fallout, there's no other real AAA box office, I got to go see it type movie left in the summer outlook at this point in time, unless something else shows up that's quite different. I think at this point in time, it looks like Skyscraper might be that dumb popcorn flick that a lot of people are just going to go ahead and check out anyways. It certainly seems like it's got that last movie pass type feel, as far as before either A, the company might go out of business, or B, all the rates will go up on it. So if people are trying to use their movie pass on something, it may actually end up being something like Skyscraper and movies like that. So at this point in time, there's some good competition at least this weekend. I'm thinking Hotel Transylvania 3 at least will have one good outing left in its arsenal. I think this weekend will prove to be the case. After that, who knows? Word of mouth may actually hurt it quite a bit. Will it make its money back for Sony? Not sure as of yet. We'll have to wait and see. Skyscraper may fall as far as number 3, in my opinion. At least the trajectory right now from a lot of people are spanning it out to be a number 3 movie. Who knows? It's so close between that, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and also as well Hotel Transylvania 3 that it looks like it's anybody's race on which movie might come out on top this weekend in the domestic box office and worldwide box office for that matter. Speaking of Ant-Man and the Wasp, I shared my thoughts on the Monday show that I thought it was a pretty good movie, and I detailed a lot more on why I thought that was the case. I want to hear your thoughts before we head on to the break and head on to the great song that we've got on tap. What you thought about Ant-Man and the Wasp, and whether or not it was something that really helps the Marvel Cinematic Universe along, especially in the fact that we're not going to be getting anything else until February of next year.
I thought it was really good. I thought it was easy to watch, and you didn't, it was able to exist on its own, kind of like Black Panther did. Is it, it could have been a standalone film, and it was funny, had plenty of action, and you didn't really have to sit there and think too hard or really delve into the mythology of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You can just kind of sit back and enjoy it. It was, yeah, they had their callbacks like Captain America and all that, but there's nothing. The story was good, the acting was good, the jokes were funny. They were able to carry some of the themes from the last one into this one, which were really cool. I guess I feel like I need to go watch it again because a couple buddies who I went and saw the movie with, they pointed out some things that I think I missed in the movie. But the whole idea of the quantum universe was cool. I liked how they showed the like the microscopic creatures floating around in there, and Hank Pym, how they kind of redeemed his character, because in the comic books he's a total jerk and a womanizer, and I like how they kind of took a different route with him in this one, which was cool. He's just kind of a bitter old man.
Well, I think also that's Michael Douglas probably putting his 2 cents in as well. I don't think he would have played a role at this point in his career as something that he wanted to be remembered by the real Hank Pym, as someone who does not have the best of comic book past as far as what has been laid out for him. And this type of Hank Pym here on the MCU is much better. I agree with you that as a standalone film, it virtually is 99.5% a standalone film within the MCU and stands by itself clearly like a Black Panther does as well.
Right, right. And as for Hank Pym, like I like that it's kind of up to your imagination. They don't say that he didn't do those things, and they don't say that he did do those things. It's kind of whatever your interpretation of him is. But I don't think that that's something that they should or would highlight because of just the overall tone of Ant-Man. And Michael Pena, like I liked how they carried over his those little voiceovers that he did like in the first one. Like that was funny to me. And I overall like there was a big time gap between this and Captain America Civil War, but like it made sense, it didn't bother me that much, and we wanted to know what he's been up to all this time, and they told us what he's been up to. Granted, they didn't really say anything about Hawkeye, which kind of bummed me out, but I like the after credit scene where they kind of tied it all together. But now that answers our question of whether or not Wasp is going to be in the sequel. So now we're stuck wondering how Ant-Man's going to get out of the quantum realm, and what does obviously, because they really focus on the quantum realm in this movie, so obviously it has something to do with what's coming up in Infinity War, or else it wouldn't have been such a the film wouldn't have been placed where it was, and the theme wouldn't have been so heavily emphasized on as it was in this movie. So clearly it has something to do with that. What's going on with how Ant-Man's going to get out, or what he's going to see while in the quantum realm could be interesting. Yeah, I was not disappointed in it, not at all.
I wasn't as well. It is in the top 10 of my Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. I think it was a pretty good movie. I think the small scale of it, like I said before, prevents it from being the absolute best in the MCU, but also prevents it from being one of the worst. And I think it's just a fun standalone movie pretty much by itself. And just like I said, it's very light in tone. I think that's what exactly the audience needs after the heavy dose of Infinity War, and how, I guess, for a MCU movie, a very dark movie that it is. And we see exactly now when this takes place in the MCU timeline, and that it takes place, for the most part, just before the events, not literally just before the events of Infinity War. As this, in fact, you could say it takes concurrently as as the events take place in Avengers Infinity War. That goes pretty much concurrently, hand in hand, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, part of it takes place before, and then part of it takes place, the after credit scene takes place after. They did a good job of spreading it out over the timeline that it needed to be spread out over. But you know what, it doesn't answer our question. No, Ant-Man was not hanging out with Hawkeye during Infinity War. And yes, Ant-Man has a big part to play coming up. So I'm excited to see what happens, man. I'm not looking forward to the idea that I do want to sit down and watch all of the movies before I go back to see Infinity War 2.
But you're going to have to anyways. And I know I will. In fact, I've been seeing quite a few before I got the chance to see Ant-Man and the Wasp. So I hear you on that. I know I'm going to be going back to Marvel School at some point in time next year. That's for sure. I want to ask you this. Ant-Man and the Wasp, it's come out. It got it got about $20 million more in its opening weekend than it did the original one, which is better, which is nice, but it's not a huge jump like with some of the other entities like Thor, Captain America. Those all saw eventual outstanding jumps in movie to movie, from the first movie in the series to the second movie. We saw more noticeable jumps in those movies than we have seen from Ant-Man the Wasp. It seems like, and I may be wrong in I'm saying this, but do you think that Ant-Man, the Ant-Man series as a whole, as far as the reason why he's playing this integral part, why the Wasp is such a favorite, why the actual movie itself, the series, even if there's a third one, because it alludes to that as well, that possibly that it's more for Marvel's sake than the audience's sake, because it seems to me that they like making Ant-Man and the Wasp and the Ant-Man movies because they enjoy the Ant-Man series, no matter how much or how little the actual audience knows about the Ant-Man and Wasp characters.
Well, it's a good time for casual fans to get on and see the movie. Like, you, and even those of us who love continuity, like, we get a chance to sit there and just watch the movie without feeling tied to the greater MCU. Like, it's something where if I wanted to watch Ant-Man, I wouldn't feel obligated to go back and watch 3 or 4 movies before I watched it. Like, I could just sit there and watch it because it's funny. And even, like, from what I understand, non-Marvel fans are enjoying this film just because they can sit there and watch it. So why not? So it's yeah, I mean, maybe Marvel enjoys making them, but I think that even more, it's just kind of a different type of movie for Marvel to have in their library, and people are digging that idea.
Hey, and props to them for recognizing how special Ant-Man and the Wasp are in the Marvel comic book timeline, without the Wasp saying, hey, we should call each other the Avengers, because she and Ant-Man are part of the original Avengers, along with Hulk, Thor, and Iron Man, I believe. she actually coined the term the Avengers in the original Avengers comic books. So she gets all the props for that. I just think that I like the films. Both films I thought were pretty good. The original Ant-Man was a nice little heist flick, and I thought this movie was even a little bit better than that movie. And I don't mind at all seeing it on the screen. I just when I actually just see these movies come out when it comes to Ant-Man and Ant-Man the Wasp, and they're happy with the direction that it's going and happy with the amount of box office returns that it gets comparative to the larger entities in the series. I just have a feeling, and I always get this in the back of my mind, and that's not a bad thing for fans out there, that they like doing this for either the comic book hardcore fans that are out there, but also as well, they just like doing it for themselves at Marvel, and like having the fact that Ant-Man and the Wasp have been around so long that they deserve this kind of movie treatment. And I don't think that, and I for one don't think that's a bad thing at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's kind of the underdog of the MCU, and that's that makes them endearing to me. So I think that that's something people appreciate, and I appreciate it. And Marvel, yeah, they like making them because it's a different type of film. And I've even the guys from Topicocalypse are going as far as to compare it to Thor Ragnarok and how much it made them laugh. So like I said, there's a Marvel film out there for everybody, and I think that Ant-Man for a lot of people now stands kind of in their top favorites.
It is a very solid movie indeed. I recommend it. I know you do as well. I hope everybody gets a chance to check out Ant-Man and the Wasp. It is now at theaters, and it could become it could be a second week #1 at the domestic box office. I know it will be #1 in several places worldwide. Hopefully we'll get the returns on what Ant-Man and the Wasp will be making the second week go around and first in several markets when we're ready to tape when we're ready to record the Monday show. So hopefully we'll give you an update on that. But it looks like a 3-horse race between Ant-Man and the Wasp, the Hotel Transylvania 3, and Skyscraper this weekend. So that is very interesting, and that's really good for us here at the Pop Culture Cosmos as well, because you never know quite sure who actually will come out on top, and it's kind of interesting always as kind of interesting when it plays out like that. So definitely looking forward to updating you folks on our Monday show, who is going to be out on top in the domestic box office, but also worldwide as well. What are your thoughts on Hotel Transylvania 3 and Skyscraper? And for that matter, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmo, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. Well, it's going to be a great show again. Like I said, we have for you indeed. We've got so much to talk about. We've got Rob McCallum coming right up in the Cosmic Crossfire. He and I are going to go mano a mano one more time on Sony, and we're going to go mano a mano one more time on Sony and more. Plus, we've got Anthony Barberin coming up later in the show, talking about NBA free agency. We're going to be talking about Indiana Jones 5 whenever it comes out, because it got delayed again this week. RoboCop, and also Build-A-Bear. What an interesting mix. I know we got a great show coming up for you as well. But first, it's Carrie O'Sullivan Holmes. She's got a great song coming up that she sent over for us. This is Tricky, and this is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with the PCC Multiverse. So good to have you. So great to have you listening to us. This is Gerald from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. If you need to check out where we're at, where we're playing, and how you can download our shows, because we're on 7 days a week on online and over-the-air radio stations, plus also over 30 different podcast networks and outlets. You can check out an abundance of that list by just checking us out at Facebook on Pop Culture Cosmos, or also as well Pop Culture Cosmos on Twitter. Josh, I knew you got a great thing going on with Humanica Media, my friend. I know you've had a couple of episodes coming out of Topicocalypse. Give us the update, my man. Plus, also as well, a great wedding video for everyone out there. What's going on with all the great stuff at Humanica Media?
You just Topicocalypse, and yes, a wedding video that you can check out on the Humanica Media Facebook page and YouTube. Yeah, we just put out a new episode this morning of Topicocalypse, and that deals with colonizing Mars, and all the repercussions of that. And you can check that out today. And also be sure to listen to us on the Podcast Radio Network. When, Gerald?
Every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on the Podcast Radio Network for Attack of the Mannequins, one of the top 5 shows on the Podcast Radio Network, where the number 1 and 2 shows are also us, as well as the Pop Culture Cosmos and PCC Multiverse. Josh, I gotta tell everyone else out there too. And don't forget, if you have a wedding coming up in your future and you're in the Southern California area, check out the awesome wedding video at Humanica Media on Facebook and Humanica Media on YouTube. If you want them to do your video, just the info's right there, and how to get in touch with them. You'll get to see their work firsthand. It's an awesome spectacle for anyone going ahead and getting hitched anytime soon. Josh, Indiana Jones 5. I'll tell you what, man, I just don't think that the Indiana Jones series has gotten much love at all from Lucasfilm since they purchased it, since Disney purchased it, now many years ago. It seems like it was just yesterday. I want to ask you, my friend, it got delayed now until 2021, when at the time it does eventually release, if it holds that date, Harrison Ford will actually be closing in on 80 years old. I ask you, my friend, is there a point in time where they should just go ahead and say, Harrison, you've done a great job with Indiana Jones. It's time to go ahead and get some new blood in there. We are pretty much sure that they're going to do a type of transitional deal anyways in Indiana Jones 5. But if they keep delaying this is not only unfair to the audience, but to Harrison Ford as well.
Right, and it makes you wonder too why they're delaying it. Because from what I understand, Han Solo's dead, so he's not going to be coming back in any Star Wars films anytime soon. So, his schedule should be pretty open. But yeah, it just granted, we've already waited a very long time, but it just kind of makes it seem, when you keep pushing a movie back further and further, it makes it not only seem like there are problems on the production side, but maybe like they don't have a lot of faith in it. And maybe there's something going on behind the scenes at Lucasfilms too. Like that whole thing with Kathleen Kennedy and, Bob Iger, we don't know what's going on. Like there could be something big, a big shift happening back there. But, with the Star Wars films not doing so great, it seems like the time to cash in on an Indiana Jones film would be now while they kind of get their act together. But I don't know. I mean, the market is open for that kind of thing, and now we're reading about Uncharted, so who knows, maybe Uncharted will scoop in and take that adventurer action flick that we haven't gotten in a long time, well, with the exception of Tomb Raider, which didn't do so well at the box office. But I mean, the market's wide open for a movie of that genre, and if Indiana Jones isn't going to take it, then it seems like somebody else might be smart enough to do that.
And Josh is saying this because Nathan Fillion of Firefly fame, and so many other great shows that he's been a part of, he recently, I guess, sent out on social media an image that kind of reminds people of the Uncharted series. And that could be something that he's been long a favorite of many people out there to portray the title character, the lead character, Nathan Drake of the video game series. He's been a favorite by a lot of people out there to play that role in a movie if and when it should come out. The last time we heard about the Uncharted movie series, it was thought that Tom Holland had tried to, and actually very successfully, got a hold of that series from Sony and said, "Hey, I want to make a young version of Nathan Drake and a younger version of Uncharted," which the Uncharted video game series has dabbled in from time to time as well. I wasn't in love with it, and I know I expressed that to you at that point in time when it was, kind of let in or announced or whatnot. I was telling you my favorite would have been Scott Eastwood, who I think is a dead ringer for Nathan Drake, and thought what he would be doing well in the role. I didn't think Nathan Fillion was still interested in it, but it looks like that could be the case, and hopefully something will materialize because, as you know, my friend, I am one of the biggest Uncharted fans on the planet and would love to see that movie materialize at some point in time. When it comes to Indiana Jones 5 being delayed to July of 2021, they have claimed it was script issues that they needed to go over before Steven Spielberg gets to helm another chance, another opportunity at this. But, Harrison Ford only has so many years left doing these type of action movies. So I know I don't know if he wants to kill off this character too, because we know how much he wanted to kill off his Han Solo character. He didn't kill off his Blade Runner character in the excellent, and might I say for the 19,000th time, the best movie the number one movie for Pop Culture Cosmos in 2017, Blade Runner 2049. He liked that character enough to keep that one going. Will he do the same in this time? I don't think at this point in time he would. I think it's going to be some sort of transitional change and pass off. I don't think it's going to be to Shia LaBeouf at this point in time. I think he's already ruined that opportunity. Maybe to a Chris Pratt has been rumored, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But delaying it to 2021 tells me that the Indiana Jones series, the Indiana Jones saga, is not as important to Lucasfilm as I believe it should be, as I think you believe it should be as well, Josh. And to me, that's kind of disappointing that it's not higher on the priority totem pole at Lucasfilm, especially in the light of what has happened with Solo.
Yeah, it just kind of makes you lose faith in Lucasfilms just a little bit. And especially since the last Indiana Jones wasn't that great, though a lot of people will now argue that the hatred for it was overrated, but it doesn't make sense to me, like why this decision's going down. And like you said, yeah, Harrison Ford is aging. So, I mean, unless there's some kind of plan to bring him back into Star Wars, there's no reason why they should be taking this long to shoot the movie. And if they're saying it's because they're filming Star Wars, if you look at their schedule, they're going to be filming Star Wars every year up until like 2030. So it doesn't make sense. And it makes it seem like at this point, the Indiana Jones franchise is just kind of in limbo. They're making movies just because they have the license. So it makes you wonder, is it going to be good? Or is it just something to throw out in theaters because they can?
Don't be starting those Han Solo resurrection theories, because Twitter and the internet has been spreading that as of late. It's gotten to the point where it started to make the rounds in the news outlets and things of that nature. And I actually shared one on our Pop Culture Cosmos Facebook page. So let's not get that started. And because people just got to leave that alone, and let's move the Star Wars franchise in a positive and different direction. Solo's dead. Harrison Ford wanted to kill him off in The Return of the Jedi, to give you an idea. He does not want to play that role, no matter how much money you throw at him one more time. Well, maybe not, because I'm sure they threw a lot of money at him in the first place. Maybe he would. I don't know, but I don't think he does. But Indiana Jones needs to be a higher priority, but unfortunately, that's not going to be the case for Lucasfilm, as we will not be seeing it until July of 2021. I know you and I will be excited for it, even with the disappointing results of the number 4 edition, the Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. That was a disappointment in my book. but they have time to recoup themselves. With Indiana Jones films, it's always the odd number films that are the best ones. With RoboCop, and that's another movie from the past in the 80s that is getting resurrected from what it looks like again, because they already tried to do that already. It looks like it is being resurrected with Neil Blomkamp, who is famous from District 9, who was going to direct the Halo movie, which at this point in time looks like it's actually going to become a series, I believe on Showtime, if I'm not mistaken, that I reported on. But it looks like at this point in time, Neil Blomkamp will be the director of the next installment and the reboot of the reboot of the reboot of RoboCop. So I ask you this, my friend, it's going to be, I guess, a direct correlation to the first film, and I think everything else is going to be swept under the rug. Is this a good move to resurrect the RoboCop film, and are you excited to see the RoboCop character on the big screen once again?
Yeah, I'll be honest. RoboCop was kind of before my time. I saw the reboot, um, that starred the guy from Altered Carbon, but it was okay. I didn't hate it, but I, I'm curious how they're going to bring the old franchise back into favor. Because from what I understand, they're doing the same thing with Conan the Barbarian, and like I don't really understand that. Like I feel like movies from the 80s, once the franchise is dead, it should stay dead. I mean, with the exception of Blade Runner, obviously, but
There are very few exceptions, and I agree with you on that. I mean, RoboCop, I guess, is a reminder of the hyper graphic violent times and things that we were able to accept as audiences in the 1980s, as opposed to what they're showing now as far as PG-13 movies are concerned. I don't think if you saw that then and you put that type of context now in movies, it would still get a PG-13 rating. But be that as it may, I thought the RoboCop was a great story. It has never been follow up with anything close to even touching that movie. Any of the follow ups have been thoroughly dismal, in my opinion, and thoroughly unwatchable. So I would have to be convinced that this is going to be actually a solid flick at all. If you're going to go ahead and do it, I would throw something different out at you, my friend. How about this? If you're going to go ahead and use that license because it's gathering dust and you want to make some cash off of it, why not make it and evolve it into a series and evolve that aspect of the new Detroit, seeing that aspect, trying to do a little bit of stories from behind the scenes, as far as the underworld of that concept, plus also a lot of the messages and themes in the actual RoboCop film from Paul Verhoeven. That was actually some of the best parts about some of his movies that were there, including RoboCop, was not just the movie and the story, but the sub stories and the subcontext and the messages that he was always trying to send to audiences as you watch the film. Put it as I'll say this, my friend. Why not put it on a streaming service and have it play out over a series on either a broadcast cable or a streaming service as well?
well, you still run into the problem that people don't know much about the franchise and they don't really care about it that much anymore, except people who grew up with it, obviously. And if Blade Runner really proved anything, it's that, it's things that were made that long ago. People aren't going to rush out to see them. Like the only reason Blade Runner got traction after it came out on Blu-ray or whatever is because it was nominated for several awards. But RoboCop is definitely not something that's going to happen to. So, and the big problem too is like you want to make a RoboCop, they rebooted it and make a sequel to that. Don't try to revive something that's that old. And also, from what I understand, it's not taking place after RoboCop 3. It's a sequel to the first one, right? So it's not it's basically canceling out all the canon. And if you ask me, like that is super confusing. Like what is the point? Like what I want to know what they're hoping to accomplish, because the last thing Neil Blomkamp was attached to was also a sequel to Alien that was going to cancel out two of the sequels too. So it just seems like they don't really know what they're doing. They're just getting ready to fire in all directions and hope that something catches. But you know, as RoboCop is dangerous. It's not something that I would make a movie, make another sequel to. And personally, like, yeah, it'd be cool to have it as like a Netflix series and have it explain origins, in a better case, or maybe have it be like an evolution of the original film. But I don't see this doing that well in the box office because it's barely even considered a classic right now.
I agree with you. Nostalgia only goes so far. And with Blade Runner 2049, even though, like we said, it was our number one choice as the best picture of 2017, we understood where it placed with audiences. People thought it was too long. People didn't understand the mythology. People didn't receive the first one, even though it's been a cult hit and it's been talked about and shown so many times over the years that it generated only about $250 million worldwide at the box office, but it has managed to garner itself a nice following, and it's actually one of the top 10. I believe it is one of the top 10 most watched on home video, either through streaming or Blu-rays, like you said. It is one of the most watched films of this year on home video, on a home video format. So I think that's a testament to everybody understanding what a visual feast it was. And now that we have all those 4K TVs and Blu-rays and 1080 streaming and all that, people are just wanting to experience it in that fashion and getting almost the same experience, although IMAX was killer. I'll just say that. Be that as it may, when it comes to RoboCop, you're right, my friend. This is way out of the norm. And if they didn't get any success or any traction from the 2012 reboot, I don't know what they're planning to do with here and planning to go with here. I just think throwing it back up on the big screen is a mistake. Like you, I have some fond memories of it. I didn't love it. I liked it. It is not my favorite Paul Verhoeven movie, not by a long shot, but it is a very solid film. Peter Weller was outstanding in the flick, and I think that's why I liked it. As far as all the even with all the graphic violence that was on it, and I thought his performance really carried the film to a T. And you're not going to have a Peter Weller unless you're going to have him in some type of role this time around, or maybe even as an older version of RoboCop. Who knows? But I don't think they were going to go ahead and do that. But I will say this, that you can only go so far when it comes to nostalgia. We're going to be seeing it soon with the next Mamma Mia. Will that do well? Will that score well? Or will it fade with audiences like My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2, I think it was. That didn't perform as well as expected because there was such a gap in audiences from the first one to the second one. And I think that's going to be the case with Mamma Mia. Had it come out sooner, I think you would have gotten a nice bump from the first one, but there's now that distance between those films. And the same thing would go for a RoboCop reboot or a succession in this RoboCop series from the first movie way back in the 80s, is that not a lot of people now even care or even remember the RoboCop movie. It's only fondly remembered by a select few at this point in time. So making another one is not the greatest idea in the book, at least putting it on the big screen. But I like I said, as a series, I would actually kind of be interested in watching it if they were to evolve those other aspects of the film that made it a solid watching experience. What are your thoughts out there on Indiana Jones 5 and the proposed RoboCop film? Want to hear your thoughts on that? Please share it with us. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. When we come back, Anthony Barberin, he's going to be talking about the best pickup in the NBA free agency this year, and also the prospects for the Lakers, the Thunder, and the Houston Rockets as they challenge the Warriors in the Western Conference this year. This is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back to close out the show. This is the PCC Multiverse. Really want to thank, first off, Rob McCallum from Rob McCallum Films for joining us once again in the Cosmic Crossfire. Anthony Barberin, our man in the know when it comes to the NBA, he got a chance to sit down and talk to me about NBA free agency. And Carrie O'Sullivan Holmes, thank you so much for sending in that great song. What was it? Tricky to us. If you have a song out there that you want to send as an independent artist that you wouldn't mind playing on our show that gets played all over the world on many different radio outlets, hey, share it with us. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Before we head on out, my friend, I got to hear your thoughts on this. A lot of people were very upset this week when it comes to Build-A-Bear workshops. I know we're reaching low this time, my friend, but hey, it's part of pop culture. Build-A-Bear workshops this week actually set a day aside and promoted it heavily for what they called was a pay your age day. And what that means was if you're, I think it was from $1 to $29, that if you had a child that was 1 year old, 2 year old, 3 year old, then all you would be paying for one of their Build-A-Bears that you go ahead and build. You put the little outfits on, you stuff it and whatnot, for just as low as whatever their age is. If you got a kid one, it's $1. Got another kid $2, 10-year-old $10, all the way up to $29. The lines for these at malls across America were outrageous. They reminded me of the waits back in the day for the Star Wars films back in the 80s, my friend. They were literally going a mile long. I was watching on social media, not only here in Las Vegas, but in Southern California, back east, Midwest, all over the place. And sure enough, they were only at the Build-A-Bear stores able to go ahead and meet a very, very small percentage of these consumers, not even just fathoming or not even realizing the interest and the interest level that would exceed so much by their expectations, and they weren't ready to handle it at all. And they actually had to cancel it after a very short period in time, even before some of these malls and stores were actually open. They actually had to cancel it, close stores, and only a select few actually got to go ahead and collect on that promotional ad campaign. So I ask you, my friend, did Build-A-Bear actually blow it big time? And in the long run, is this going to cost them as a company with consumers when they're thinking about buying something like that or going into that, because they're going to remember that this was such a raw deal and such a fiasco on a major, major level?
I think if anything, it'll teach them to be more prepared next time. It sounds like they didn't really, they weren't expecting the crowds that they got, and they weren't really prepared for what was going to happen. I think they, just a promo, because Build-A-Bear is pretty expensive. Just kind of a opportunity they were going after to try to get more people into the shop, and I think it backfired on them. So, uh, who would have thought? To be honest, if I were working on a Build-A-Bear store, I would have never thought that there would be lines, wrapped around the block or anything. But I think that they should have at least given those people vouchers who were there and didn't get their bear, because that in itself is kind of false advertising. But um, I think that they do need to do something to make up to the customers, and if anything, next time they need to be more prepared for having some kind of sale like that, because people like to pay less money for things, and this has kind of just proven that.
Well, the damage control forces are out in abundance when it comes to Build-A-Bear workshops. They did provide with some, and I'm going to repeat that, some and only some, with those vouchers you were talking about, but for a flat $15 from what I'm able to ascertain. So if you still had a kid that was 3 years old or 4 years old or 5 years old that were in line and due for a $3, $4, $5 bear, mind you, the $15 voucher, if you were lucky enough to get one, still means it's a substantial savings over what would be a normally priced Build-A-Bear with all the add-ons and stuff like that, which actually can cost upwards of $50 to $60 US market. But still, that's still not sending the right message, because you didn't get that out to everybody. Now they're still saying through their social media, the same social media that said in earnest, we got to cancel this, we got to cancel this, that they're going to try and rectify this somehow, which I guess is kind of a fail-safe at this point in time. But I think this is going to do damage to the company long term. Well, it's not going to put them out of business per se, but you don't have people waiting this long in lines. Several hours long was the estimated wait time in certain areas all across the country. And right now, several parts of the country, including Las Vegas, and I know where you live in the Orange County area, have high degrees of weather right now. We're talking well over 100 degrees. These parents, these moms, these dads, and these kids, most importantly, had to wait for hours before they got the bad news on this. I think that's atrocious. I think that's just really reprehensible. I really think that's just a mistake of the highest proportions. I think it was very narrow-minded in their thinking of doing this. They thought this would be this fun little thing. But anytime these retail outlets do these type of things where there is a substantial savings, there's big crowds. It never fails. There's always big crowds for it that's generated. They should have understood this much more clear. And I think it's going to hurt them in the long run. And I think it's going to, at least for a while, impact their business sales overall.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't really talk too much about this because I don't go to Build-A-Bear. I've been there probably twice, but
oh, come on, man, come on. I think you have.
no, I swear I have no reason to go there. So it's I was there when they had the special King's Bears that you can make. But yeah, I honestly I wish I had more to say on this, but I don't. But I think that they do need to be more prepared. It's kind of like if you advertise a Black Friday sale. Can you imagine Prime Day, for example, if Amazon Prime, they had Prime Day and then they had 3 of each product. I don't think a lot of people would be too happy about that. So speaking of Prime Day is coming up, everyone. Make sure you stay tuned. I'm sure Gerald here will be posting some of the deals going on. But
and we will, but also you and I are going to be going into depth on that on our Monday episode about some of the deals that you and I are going to be looking at over the course of the Prime Day shopping season. But go back to what you said, and I'll let you finish up.
But yeah, I mean, you do need to, if you're gonna have a sale, you need to be prepared. You need to try to think of every possible outcome, because I think that's how it usually goes down on Black Friday too, with Best Buy and Target, and that you need to kind of guess what's going on ahead of the curve. And it didn't sound like Build-A-Bear did a great job of that.
As someone, as a father of 2 daughters who has purchased Build-A-Bears in the past, I say it's really just tragic that this all happened. I think it was very nearsighted. I think it was a good will attempt at first, but then common sense has to come into play. And unfortunately, I think that common sense was tucked away in the stuffing of one of their bears. What are your thoughts out there on the Build-A-Bear fiasco known as Pay Your Age Day? Did you get caught up into it? We'd love to hear your thoughts, and we'll actually read out your thoughts on the show if you want. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. Well, it's been a great episode. Coming up Monday, like I said, we're going to update everybody on what went on at the movie box office, plus give our thoughts on some of the best deals that are going to be coming out for the huge, as always, Amazon Prime Day. So definitely looking forward to that. I believe we're also going to have Jay Bartlett talking about the major TV deal that Overwatch and Blizzard just struck for future episodes of the Overwatch League. That is a big deal in the E-League. So that is a big deal in esports. So you got to check that out. His interview coming up, I believe, on the Monday show as well. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. I know it's late. I'm tired too. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.